Movie mogul Harvey Weinstein was the most powerful man in Hollywood. He had it all. The $1 million company, a beautiful wife, and friends in very high places. But almost 2 years ago, that all changed.
In October 2017, the New York Times published a damning investigation alleging that Weinstein had paid off countless women he had propositioned or assaulted. Actress Ashley Judd was one of the first to go public, describing how she'd once escaped his advances in a hotel room.
And finally, I just said, when I win an Oscar in one of your movies, okay? And he was like, yeah, when you get nominated. I said, no, when I win an Oscar. And then I just fled.
Now, the two journalists who compiled that original dossier of evidence have written a book, an explosive account of how they uncovered Hollywood's dirtiest secret.
I spoke to those two women, two journalists, Jodie Cantor and Megan Toohey, a little earlier this morning. Jodie and Megan, good morning. When you published the original article, did you have any idea how it would snowball into the movement that we see?
Certainly not. When a few nights before publication, Megan and I were sharing a cab home very late at night, and we asked ourselves, will anyone really read this story after all of this hard work? One of our editors said many times, Harvey Weinstein is not that famous. Also, a lot of people told us that it would be very unsurprising to people that a sleazy producer in Hollywood had taken advantage of women, etc., etc. But when we saw the staggering worldwide reaction to this story, that really is part of what motivated us to write this book, because we wanted to do two things. We wanted to bring the rest of you to the forefront of these events, to have you on the phone with these actresses as they started to tell us these very difficult stories. We wanted you in the offices of the New York Times during the final confrontations with Harvey Weinstein before we published. And also we knew that writing the book would give us more time to investigate Harvey Weinstein. Those first stories provided pieces of the puzzle, but there were many, many more things that we were able to discover, including why so many people helped him.
You said there are so many good reasons not to go on the record with a story like this. How much did these women have to lose?
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein had been able to engage in a pattern of alleged predation going back decades, and nobody had the courage to step forward and say anything about it publicly. And I think that one of the reasons for that was that he was one of the most powerful figures in Hollywood in the entertainment industry. He could make your career and he could break your career. And so when we were setting out to try to investigate this story, we were running into women, even really famous women, who you with all the kind of power and resources you could possibly imagine, who worried that they would be the ones to face damage to their careers and their reputations if they went on the record.
So how did you get them across the line? How did you convince them?
Well, we tried to build a mountain of evidence. We didn't want to pit the women's word against Harvey Weinstein's word. Instead, we dug for months for the legal and financial trail of Harvey Weinstein's payouts to women, internal company records, memos and documents that had allegations that had been hidden, testimony from other Weinstein employees who knew that something was wrong and described their awareness of the issue at the time. And so we were trying to provide the strongest possible basis on which the women could come forward. But it was still very tough. I remember asking Ashley Judd to go on the record a few days before publication, and the ask felt all wrong. I was bracing myself for rejection. We had wanted a huge number of actresses to go into the pool at the same time, but nobody else was willing to, and so we had to ask her to be the only one. And we had to ask her to put her career on the line, basically.
You discovered along the way that there was this culture of silencing settlements, that they were prevalent. How did you get around that?
So this was another one of the biggest challenges in the course of our reporting. There was the fear that women had of coming forward because they thought it would do damage to their reputations. But there also were these secret settlements that had locked some of Weinstein's victims into silence. Some of the restrictive clauses that go along with these agreements are jaw-dropping. Women can't tell their husbands what's happened. They can't tell their friends. They can't warn other colleagues. Sometimes they can't even see a therapist without the therapist signing a confidentiality clause.
So many shocking stories in the book. Is there one that really stood out for you? You just couldn't believe the extent of these stories and just how, I guess, horrendous they were.
Well, we'll tell you a shocking story that's not about predation, it's about cover-up. I don't know if there are Australian equivalents, but in the United States, there are a couple of super prominent feminist attorneys who go on TV a lot. They talk a lot about being advocates for women. And one of them is named Lisa Bloom. And Lisa Bloom, it turns out, crossed sides and worked for Harvey Weinstein. And what we were able to uncover in this book is that she wrote a secret memo to Weinstein in December of 2016, laying out the way she would use all of her expertise and all of her public credibility as a women's rights advocate to discredit one of Weinstein's accusers, Rose McGowan.
More than anything, it just showed us that there were so many surprises that you couldn't make assumptions. When you're looking at something like the Harvey Weinstein story, I think it's easy to sort of assume who the good guys and the bad guys are. But in the course of our reporting, there were just sort of shocking figure after shocking figure in terms of people who both helped bring the truth to light and the people who helped hide it.
Can we talk about Gwyneth Paltrow, a household name? You've said that Gwyneth was instrumental in your reporting. Tell our viewers what Gwyneth Paltrow was able to do for this story and this book.
Well, very early on in the investigation, at a time when almost nobody was picking up the phone to us, Gwyneth Paltrow not only picked up the phone, not only told us a very upsetting story about sexual harassment and actually career threat that she said Harvey Weinstein had made to her years earlier, but she really backed the investigation. She said the story needs to come out. And she very quietly said about texting and calling old co-stars and other people she knew in Hollywood to ask if they would help us. In fact, the first time we met with her in person, she got a call on her phone and she said, "Excuse me," and she walked a few paces away and she was speaking to another very prominent female star, asking her about her experiences with Weinstein to see if she would help us as well.
And did Harvey Weinstein actually try and stop Gwyneth Paltrow from talking to you?
Well, there was a moment when Harvey actually showed up at Gwyneth Paltrow's house in the course of our investigation. I think what we later learned and experienced as we were working to bring our story to the finish line and publish it is that Harvey Weinstein was obsessed with the question of whether or not Gwyneth was participating. And there was a moment where he showed up to her house. She was having a party. He showed up early, and she was so scared that he was there to try to interfere with any role that she might be playing in helping us that she hid in the bathroom and called Jody seeking sort of advice on what to do if he did in fact come after her.
Two remarkable journalists, aren't they? Megan and Jody. That is part one. Harvey Weinstein will face trial in January. He denies all allegations of wrongdoing. The book, She Said, is on sale now. Stick around. Part two of that interview a little later this morning as Jody Cantor and Megan Twohey reveal the big name that they're investigating for their next expose.
Oh, great chat. Back with more of the morning show in just a tick.